state where we get a new poll or two in from Wisconsin. This is a state that Donald Trump won, that Hillary Clinton didn't even visit. Back in 2016, you look at some of the numbers there. The Democrats doing quite well. Tammy Baldwin comfortably ahead. And in the gubernatorial race that Scott Walker has won, there she's up by 14 points. In the gubernatorial race that Scott Walker has really won 3 times already. If you look at the recall election, that's a big 10-point lead. So you have these swing states, and I put Virginia on that list, Wisconsin. Look at Florida, Indiana that Barack Obama won in 2008. I think you have races that Nevada, even Arizona, those races are going to go down to the wire for the most part. Tennessee, Texas, maybe not. Maybe those are all over. But we still have 7, 8, 9, 10 Senate races that are going to be up for grabs to the very end, aren't we?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you look in the Midwest, if you want to talk about a Senate race that's going to go down to the wire, Missouri, right? Claire McCaskill out there waiting to see how that, if there is an effect from Kavanaugh in that race. But yeah, I do think that the thinking has shifted big picture in the last week. I mean, I think about 10 days ago, before the sort of effect, the potential effect of Kavanaugh took hold, people were starting to tick up the Democrats' chances of getting not just the House, but the Senate. And people were starting to think that was getting close to, maybe like a 40% shot for them. I think that number in most people's minds has fallen down to like 10% or so in the last week or so based on these events. But on the House side, it just continues to be, there are so many opportunities on the map for Democrats. And one of the things you find in so many of these midterm elections these days is that in the end, you mentioned all those races that are supposedly within a couple points, they do tend to break one way. And if they do end up breaking in the Democrats' favor, that could still be a big win for them. But I think Republicans are looking at it right now and seeing at least a narrow chance of barely hanging on to the House, which is better than they've been thinking for a while.
All right, Steve Kornacki, author of The Red and the Blue. I know you have a plane to catch. Thanks for being on. I want to turn now to the return to the disappearance of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. And Jonathan Swan, you had been talking with the Saudi ambassador, texting with him, actually, about certain issues, and then he went radio silent. Explain that exchange.
So I received a text message on Monday from Prince Khalid bin Salman, WhatsApp message. He's the Saudi ambassador in Washington and the younger brother of MBS. It was a long message saying that they're very concerned about the well-being of Khashoggi and all of these reports are wrong, etc., etc. We care about his well-being. We're trying to find him. I said, thank you. And then I said, do you have footage of him leaving the consulate? And I didn't receive a response.
Nothing. Radio silent. Willie, guys, this is, again, I mean, as the evidence builds up, everyone is looking to the United States of America to respond in kind to an attack, not just on a wonderful human being and an incredibly talented writer, but a member of the press, a writer for the Washington Post.
Yeah, and I would also add to this conversation, Mika, that as of today, the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, is still scheduled to attend that conference in Riyadh. There's still about a week and a half until it goes. So they may end up canceling. We will see. Rick Stengel, if this were the State Department you worked in right now, and this may be happening at the State Department, independent from what the President's saying from the Oval Office, what would be happening right now as the news came across of his disappearance?
People would be thinking, look, they can't do this with impunity. What is the arsenal of things that we can do? Is it sanctions? Is it not going to this conference? And I mean, one of the things that, and Joe and Anika were both talking about this transactional nature that Trump has with other countries. What has always distinguished us is that we're not transactional. The Chinese go in and they build a superhighway and they say, we don't care what your politics is. The Russians certainly don't care what their politics is. People want to deal with the United States, but we always go, look, MBS, you've got to be more open. You've got to let women drive. You've got to let people go to the cinema. You can't do this bombing, in Yemen. And people don't like that. But that is our foreign policy and has been since Woodrow Wilson was president. And I sure hope that people at the State Department and the White House are saying, look, the Saudis just can't get away with doing something like this. It crosses a red line in all kinds of ways, and there needs to be some kind of damage and reparations.
All right, Rick Stengel, thank you very much. And Jonathan Swan, thank you as well. Still ahead, polls earlier this week showed just 31% of women approve of the job President Trump is doing. So how do they feel about his handling of one of the biggest issues this midterm season? We're talking about health care, and we'll go live to Ohio to see what women voters think about that ahead on Morning Joe.
One day in America, we vote. For folks we know and folks we don't. For this grand idea. And whatever happens, we'll be here to make sense of it. With a vote for America's future on MSNBC.
I'm Ken Jacobus. I'm the owner of Good Start Packaging. We distribute environmentally friendly packaging for restaurants. And we've grown substantially, so I switched to the Spark Cash Card from Capital One. I earn unlimited 2% cash back on everything I buy. And last year, I earned $36,000 in cash back. That's right, $36,000, which I used to offer health insurance to my employees. My unlimited 2% cash back is more than just a perk. It's our health care. Can I say it? What's in your wallet?
What's your dentist say when you get on the moon?
Well, we're not sure we're going to get onto the moon. First Man is what cinema was made for. It's a timely reminder of why we aim for the stars. First Man, rated PG-13. Experience the moon in IMAX.
Guess who just bagged the biggest unicorn in the valley? Best $1.3 billion I ever spent. Should have asked Markham.
Ever wonder where the people with all the answers get all the answers? Ask Markham. Accountants and advisors.
We were definitely searching for something special, and we weren't going to stop until we found it.
I'll show you.
Representing the drug companies that have killed our kids. Steve Dettelbach turned his back on us. He cannot bring justice. Dave Yost will get justice for the children we have lost.
Concerns about health care are one of the top issues in the midterms, and it is no different in Ohio, an important state to President Trump's re-election. Joining us now from Lebanon, Ohio, NBC News correspondent Morgan Radford. And Morgan, you spoke with voters about this. What did they say?
I have it ready.
Mika, we sure did, and we're standing here in Lebanon, Ohio, and this is one of the reddest districts in the state. It's also where the president is coming to hold his rally tonight. And of course, Mika, when we go to cover these rallies, we hear a lot about his populist message, even his personality and his popularity. But we don't always hear about specific policies. And there is one policy that the voters here in Ohio say he must address when he comes tonight, and that's health care. Admittedly, it's a topic that many of them say they didn't really think about until it impacted them personally, like Colleen Bowman. She has a 14-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with cancer 7 years ago, and ever since then, she's been fighting to make sure that her daughter is covered, even though she has a pre-existing condition. So she got all of her friends together here in Ohio, and they've been pounding the pavement, and they're getting politically active for the very first time this midterm election year, and it's all about this one issue, health care. Take a listen. Just from a show of hands, how many of you would say health care is one of the most important issues to you in this election? All of you.
My daughter was diagnosed with melanoma at 7, 1 year after the ACA. Sorry.
No, don't.
And it was life-changing what the ACA did for us.
She's now cancer-free. However, we now have to worry about that she will not be covered because of not having the protection of pre-existing conditions.
And so this is a new concern.
Yes.
I will say that the first thought I had after we went through all these tests was, thank God she's protected.
Is it something you feel like you don't have anymore?
I feel like we are in serious jeopardy of having that slip away, and I worry about it every single day. I lose sleep over it. Every single thing in my life right now is fighting to make sure that she keeps insurance. Because not only will it affect her health care, it will affect her financial security for the rest of her life.
From a Republican standpoint, how do you feel about affordable health care?
I think it's a necessity. I think that there are things that need to be changed about it, but I think that in the way things are going right now, if nobody is willing to talk to each other, we need some bipartisan, conversation to get things going, or we're going to lose, the pre-existing conditions, everything, and nobody's going to be able to afford any sort of health care the way things are going right now.
My mom was diagnosed with cancer in November, so now I'm going to meetings and appointments with her and watching them ask the doctor if there's cancer drugs that are on insurance. So
they're affordable.
Right. So if you don't think it's going to happen to you, it will. It will in some shape or form affect a family member.
Were you all politically active before this midterm season?
None of us were.
Colleen and her friends say it is an all-out fight until November. But they're also not alone. 52% of Americans in a recent NBC poll found that they would not likely vote for a candidate who wants to repeal or limit the Affordable Care Act. Mika?
NBC's Morgan Radford, thank you very much. And Jeremy Peters, before we go to break, your thoughts on this?
Well, what Democrats have been trying to do for a long time is make this front and center in the midterm election. Of course, when Donald Trump is president of the United States, it's hard to get anything but him on center stage. This is a big worry. Where Democrats saw the key to saving a lot of these vulnerable seats, North Dakota, Florida, for example, localize those races, make them about soybeans, make them about the local schools, the tariffs. Healthcare is a way of doing that. I think it's a question of what else, though, is in voters' minds. And if it's a pocketbook issue, as healthcare so often is, sure, it really can be.
Jeremy Peters, thank you so much. And still ahead, President Trump has said he won't fire Jeff Sessions before the midterms. But that doesn't mean he isn't actively looking for his next attorney general. We're taking a look at who's on the president's reported short list next on Morning Joe.
Now to our journey across America. Good evening from the shadow of the U.S.-Mexico border. What's your concern? You're talking about housing.
I'm talking about housing. I'm talking about employment opportunities.
We were there during those heart-wrenching hours. What is this like for them?
Difficult situation for all of us.
It's changing policing.
When we get done, Chicago will be the safest big city in this country.
We see in the first time more stories that impact local towns across this country.
A better SUV dares to ask why not. Like, why not versatile? Master of all seasons, all the prizes kind of versatile. Why not turn up the comfort? First class comfort. Why not make it rugged?
Real rugged.
But also smart. And of course, reliable. Friend picking you up at midnight, reliable. And why not end with a big statement? Honda, awarded Best SUV Brand for 2018.
We use Angie's List because we can always find great local pros.
For any type of home project. I use Angie's List because it's free. Free to read reviews.
Check their ratings. They can even match my project to qualified pros.
Go to angieslist.com today. In an era of online retail where everything is just a few clicks away, buying a car should be no different. That's why at Carvana, you can buy a car 100% online. We made it easy to browse, view, and buy.
Mess up and you accidentally something happens, you fall and you end up next to the Unabomber, you gotta remove all that trapdoor out of the relationship. The fourth gentleman has broke the 13th Amendment, and I think the way the universe works is perfect. We don't have 13 floors, do we?
Yeah, that's the President of the United States.
Ahead on Morning Joe, we'll talk about yesterday's surreal scene with rapper Kanye West in the Oval Office. Plus, the Turkish government has reportedly told U.S. officials it has audio and video recordings to prove that Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate. And President Trump appears to choose Arab authoritarianism over this U.S. resident. You're watching Morning Joe. We'll be right back.
What if numbers tell only half the story? At T. Rowe Price, hundreds of our experts go beyond the numbers to examine investment opportunities firsthand. Like a biotech firm that engineers a patient's own cells to fight cancer. This is strategic investing. Because your investments deserve the full story. T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence.
Fact is, every insurance company hopes you drive safely. But Allstate helps you with DriveWise. Feedback that helps you drive safer, and that could lower your cost. Now that you know the truth, are you in good hands?
We needed to build a website for our paddleboarding business. With WordPress.com, it was easy to find the